recommend Meetup to a lot of my friends that are looking for different things. Wine tasting, movies, book club, meet a lot of new people, a lot of new friends, and it will make you more social.
Welcome directly from the studio from Belgrade about the match HANS team and NEPO Shian. Match is about to start. The players are coming to the playing hall. HANS is already in the sit. Today with the white pieces, most probably try to strike back because NEPO is leading the tournament with 1.3 for him, and NEPO and HANS 2 points. I believe that HANS is optimistic to score today because he got white pieces and he definitely need to bring some excitement and dynamic position to reach NEPO in the match. And here comes the NEPO. Let's see what is the HANS choice today. Will he go for his main move 1e4 or he'll choose some other side line? Surprise NEPO today again. Does it sound better? Playing home. And he opens with e4. We are getting... Are we getting Rosalimo again? Are we getting again Rosalimo today's match? We also need to update the live board. Identical line that we faced in the second and the fourth round of the match. And HANS is going for the move b3. NEPO goes with queen c7. I believe that this is some meta line. And most probably NEPO well expected here. This position. Because in the previous game, HANS chooses to go d3, and we see one game with e5, and the other one was with knight to c3 here, and now HANS chooses to deviate with b3, which is another option, and he chooses to go for queen c7. Again, bishop b2 and f6 happen in the game. Let's update the live board also. 1 second. Day 3 of politely asking for score to be displayed on this main scene. If you want to see them, if you want to see live board, if you want to see analysis board, if you want to see me, and you want to see the scoreboard, then there would be a lot of stuff on the main screen. So we can check the scoreboard here. So NEPO is leading the tournament with 1 point. Up HANS 3 and HANS 2 points. Game 6 ongoing, and let's see what this game brings to us. I'm afraid that main camera is frozen. Maybe we'll get back. Okay, it's back. Hans is looking at NEPO, intensively trying to predict maybe what he's planning to do. All right. Hans played queen e2 and stood from the board, preparing short side castles and potential e5. Trying to strike these pawns here and not allow NEPO to continue with the proper development. What are these players' names? What sport is this? Checkers. Knight on h6 and knight to c3. Is somebody in the building? What do you mean by that? NEPO played knight f7, so what he's trying to do is to consolidate center, most probably with something like e5, d6, bishop e7, bishop e6, trying to build his fortress, and still we might see this very, very dynamic and bad pawn structure for NEPO, where he would later try to compensate overall with a bishop here. Now many people won't play here directly d4 with white pieces. This should be bad because it's correcting the pawn structure of black. It's also opening up these bishops. So move is possible technically, but it's giving simply black a lot of chances to sooner or later strike the center quite confidently. Firstly with c5 and then later with other pieces. So generally, maybe firstly a6 and then c5. Generally, that's what NEPO would like to see. But of course, Hans is not going for that. This is purely strategical, where he will go most probably something like d3, maybe knight f4, bishop e3 here. Just knight stands better on that square because it puts the pressure on the c5 pawn. Mr. Eleyah, you from which country? I'm from Serbia. For those who don't know me, I'm Eleyah. I'm from Serbia, I'm FIDE Master, and I'm hosting the stream Hans Niemann versus Jan Nepomniachtchi. Is any YouTuber doing analysis of those games? There is. ChessBase India is covering the recap part. You can already check the first recap from the first game, where NEPO won against the Niemann. And after d3, NEPO strikes in the center directly. Firstly, they played king b1 castles and d5. We are again seeing theoretical battle here. Both of them are above 1 hour. I guess both of them know what they're doing. And that's what actually Hans is inviting for. He wants NEPO to take on e4, to play something like d4, which will affect the pawn structure and result in permanent weaknesses. So that's why NEPO here would search for a5, c4 breaks. Whenever you have opposite castles, remember that this game is going to be very exciting. So we're going to have such an exciting game today, because what will Hans try to do is to bring the rook to g1 and then start pushing these pawns where we're going to have really nice attacking chess. On the other side, NEPO will do the same. He might put a bishop somewhere on a6, maybe firstly a5 and then bishop a6. Exactly, Hans just played rook from d to g1 quite confidently, and he's ready to go for g4, h4 as we mentioned. On the other side, NEPO wants to go a5, c4, bishop a6, and trying to undermine this beautiful white light square pawn chain. While on the other side, Hans is doing similarly with these rooks, this bishop, and other minor pieces on the king side. But any sort of break here from the white side and from the black side will be hard to break through, because there is very good and very stable pawn structure behind Hans Niemann's defense here. And on the other side, NEPO has very good stability here. Has knight and bishop around the king, also the rook. Not bad pawn structure here. So, very intense game, already on radar. Castling on the queen side seems aggressive. Yeah, I agree with that. But if position demands to play this, we have to go for that. You can't really castle on short side. I mean, Hans could castle on short side, obviously. But if it's better according to principles and according to nowadays supercomputers, then position demands, you choose to play this position, that's it. You have to go for it if you want to create something in this game. Otherwise, it's just your wrong opening choice. But I believe that Hans chooses this and NEPO chooses this opening because NEPO is very smart with black pieces in this match. He's always provoking Hans with some little sort of ideas that could make Hans impatient, let's say, like that. Like he did a couple of times, especially in the earlier stage of the match. Now, more we going to the end of the match, Hans is more wise and more patient, I would say. Can I check the database? Of course. No games in this. We can go a little bit behind and see if there's any games. Still not games here. There is 2 games here. Queen e2 was not played. Castling shortside was played. It was played in match between famous grandmaster from Iceland, Stefansson, and the other one is 2400, I guess, international master, Bertine Mika. On the other side, after f6, there is also the one game with d3 here. Played not on high level, but FIDE master level. So quite unknown field and structures in general. So let's see what happens after rook from d to g1. Nepo came back, and let's see what he will respond on this move. There is quite a few options. What is actually very weird now, that the computer is recommending here d4. And by playing that move, he's definitely affecting the pawn structure on the c line and then giving up the way the c4 square. But he actually wants this type of position because machine believes that at some point c4 will come anyways, maybe together with bishop e6, together with rook from f to b8, and then purely striking along the b line. This is what we can notice. Why are spectators on the left watching the wall? That's a good question. And the others are watching the game, right? Maybe something is on that wall. What do you think about that? And Nepo played a5, no d4, of course. I guess pieces looks better now. There is some color key applied. Put like this. There's gonna be fire on the board, I completely agree with you. There is a monitor on the wall. There is big TV. So some of them can spectate through the TV, they're looking directly on them. Last 4 games was a draw. Let's put this point scoreboard for people who just joined us. Nepo is leading the match, but with the first game he won in that beautiful Ring Lopez endgame. But on the other side we have a couple of fast draws in this game, this match. And the second game was very intense. Nepo was also about to win that one, but HANS managed to defend it successfully. Game 5 was very short, lasted 30 minutes. Both of them agreed with 3-phone repetition, which was really surprising. We expected HANS to find that position, but he decided to rest. How are you guys today? Doing well? Sunday afternoon in Europe, I guess in US is morning. Some were 9, some were 8, some were 7. Depends on the location. In Asia is already evening. I hope you have a great time. Nepo position is much more easy to play. It looked like that it's easy because Nepo already started his attack on the queen side. That makes a lot of sense. But on the other side, HANS is also starting with g4 or h4 attack. So I believe that there is no much big difference how you start this if you're gonna anyway at some point play the next move h4 g4, but let's say as preference to start with g4, then let's say a4 by NEPO. We have to take this guy here. And now what's the point? What he wants with his pawn sacrifice? Does he want to do something like this? This definitely looks interesting. Maybe NEPO will go for something like that. Maybe not immediately, but at some point for sure. And then trying to free up this diagonal, also bring the other rook to the game. Queen comes inside, and practically speaking, this is not comfortable at all, but machine is not agreeing with what we are showing the board. It says that it's +1 for white. But I believe for the blitz game or for the rapid game, this is highly uncomfortable for white. So many pieces are staring at the king on b1. And not just that, even if you push d4 now, you're not just gonna lock down this bishop. You're also going to prepare to open up the other one. So this rook sacrifice is very interesting. Machine recommends firstly to go easy with the move e5, put the bishop here, and then maybe go later for this stuff. Hans would need here to play something like c4, because he needs to stop NEPO of playing that move. And technically speaking, NEPO's attack is faster. And that's the reason why in this position Hans decided to play the move knight to a4. So he can technically stop NEPO of playing this move. Hans is spending the time and wasting the time to prevent some attack. So that's always a question in the game. Like when you're doing the opposite side castling attack, and when it's obvious that one side is faster than the other side, then usually you're distracted thinking that maybe your opponent will reach your king before you reach your opponent's king, which humanly makes a lot of sense, but sometimes the attack of your opponent doesn't work properly. And I completely agree with Hans as a human reaction is to stop that pawn of going further, because I also believe that NEPO will at some point sacrifice the rook for the pawn. That's also why Hans just wanted to stop that action happening. And let's say bishop to a6 is quite natural move here. He wants to push c4, maybe bishop to b5 to go after this knight, and here Hans has to play this move c4, pretty much to lock down everything. This is the only move that makes sense for Hans here, to fully block the attack of black. Otherwise, if he plays something else, if he goes for g4, then c4 will be very uncomfortable, because it's also now protecting and attacking at the same time. So if you go slightly back here, and after knight f4, let's say NEPO plays something like e5, and if Hans now go for the move c4, in this position, he wants to reroute a knight from d8 to e6 to d4. So this knight regrouping will be very beautiful. On the other side, Hans can do that the same way, because there's a double pawns. The second time in this match that we are seeing that this double pawn is showing great defense of these squares. So this is actually very nice maneuver, and it's called outpost. Outpost is a square, for beginners that don't know what is that. It's a square that it's not protected by any other pawns. It means that you're always looking forward to put bishop or knight there. Most probably the knight in close positions, knight can only reach that square. Technically speaking, this bishop can reach it, but if you can plant the bishop there, that's also beautiful. But knight is always better. So once you jump on that square, you're going to stabilize, you're going to provoke your opponent of trading, and then this could control the structure. Just going to give you some potential lines. Let's say Hans goes for this, then we play knight to a6, then Hans goes for h4 or something, and then after knight e4, if you would capture this knight here in the future, definitely going to be affected, because this pawn will matter a lot in the further action of the game. So after a5, this makes a lot of sense why he stopped it with a move knight f4, but d4 is also another engine move here, but it's simply not human. And NEPO has to understand that going for c4 directly after knight f4, it's very risky. He has to be careful how he's doing that, because let's say after take, and if he takes back, queen takes. This position is also fine for white. Despite he opens another line, it didn't affect the king safety on the b line. So I would say bishop a6, you can lose the pawn on e6, and e5, of course, if that happened, like, and if he tries to play king to h8, he is also creating the weaknesses in the light squares. So maybe white can try to exploit it in the future. He can technically also switch to play just simply in the center and on the queen side, because he has great stability here, and the position overall is very nice for white. Very nice game. I already like the opening choice on both sides, because without NEPO we couldn't have this possible in the game. NEPO could choose to play Berlin or something, or any other boring grinding Italian game, let's say, like that. For many people it's boring, unfortunately, but this is actually quite interesting. NEPO understands that this is a double-edged game, and he goes for e5. NEPO pushes in the center. e5 is logical, but technically d4 is not logical, because it opens the light squares and creates the soft spot. So in the future, when he plays d4, then easily this knight can get regrouped on that square. But general point of d4 e5 is later even to sacrifice with c4, trying to clearly open up the b line. So e5 on the board. And I believe that Hans, as we mentioned earlier, we said that c4 is one of the ideas, but we are easily transposing into this line that we just recommended for black. So c4 is not what he wants. After e5, Hans has to start pushing the pawns on the king side, and then after g4 and h4 together, we're gonna create some intense problems here and double-edged position. Like always when you have opposite castles, this is something that is coming on the board, and games are becoming very, very interesting. Rosalimo is not for us beginners or non-rated players. Center completely taken by black. I would judge this as -2 or something. Technically yes. You are completely right, because when you're a beginner, when you're still learning the concepts of chess and strategical ideas and techniques, then always try to play something more simple when it comes to openings. And Hans played c4 and NEPO autopilot the move knight to d8. We just can clearly see that we are getting this beautiful outpost for NEPO on d4. This is something we are talking about, guys. Knight e4 is coming clearly. Why Hans rushed with the move c4? Did he forget about this idea? This was so quick and impatient if he missed 98, 96, 94. This is not expected from Niemann. NEPO immediately made face after Hans played. You mean famous NEPO expression? Like this? Maybe. I didn't see that. If you're right, then maybe yeah. Can he eat on d5? He can, but the problem is that this is actually what NEPO wants. We already talked about the problems of bishop pair, and that if the structure starts getting slowly open, this bishop will prevail against these knights, specifically because currently now this knight is terrible piece. It's completely restricted by black dark square pawns. And on the other side, this bishop is doing amazing job now, suddenly getting into the game. We can notice earlier that in this position, bishop is kind of stuck, right? But once the position gets open and once if you take and exchange these pawns, this bishop becomes really powerful. And specifically now, this knight can come back on f7 and d6 in the future. And he can also find his route to d4 again. Doesn't matter that Hans won the pawn, this is not a great pawn structure. If this pawn would stay here, then this is much bigger difference in the structural perspective for Niemann. I don't know why Hans rushed for this. c4. c4 was good earlier. There was a moment earlier where he had an option to play the move c4. We're going to check that quickly. I believe is somewhere after a5, let's say g4, I think we analyzed. Exactly, and then a4. And when we have this position, now c4 is good. And why is this a difference? Because we are simply pawn up on the other side. And here we can technically take, but we can also just continue rushing our pawns on that side of the board. If knight is 6, now we can technically take, maybe actually better with the other pawn. Take, let's say take, c takes, knight f4, and something like queen f4, I guess. And this clearly makes a difference, gives the advantage. Because knight e4 now, if that happens now, doesn't matter much here, because we can also bishop takes d4, c takes, and now we can take on f6 first, then bring the other rook to c1, maybe. We just get these light squares, and again, okay, this is also not, yeah, let's put a live board. That's better because that's not in a game. Like, it's clearly different when you have this a5 pawn and when this pawn is in the game, so. Oof. Hans, why did you do that? Eleyah, do you think Hans is a top 10 player? Be honest. I mean, we can clearly see that he is not in top 10. He never reached top 10. He reached 12. And he is currently 12. Not in the live ratings, he is maybe 16 or something. I checked this morning. He's not clearly in top 10, so we cannot say that he's in top 10. I believe he's a very strong player, but he needs to work more to become in top 10. Eleyah, do you know the butcher, Mio Perunovic? Yeah, of course. We are from the same hometown, Niš in South Serbia. Know him very well. Hans looks like he barely did a prep. I believe he's the one that pushes and gets this b3 line. He surprised NEPO, but NEPO was prepared, obviously. More I see NEPO playing this line, more like the way how he's playing it. Clearly getting comfort game all the time. This is a strategical mistake that Niemann played that I didn't expect. I was more expecting that Niemann will make some tactical blunder, let's say, but not strategical blunder, where he suddenly starts spending a lot of time. A lot of grandmasters blunders nowadays. What type of argument is this? Someone mentioned in the chat. Okay. What's the head-to-head score right now? Okay, I guess many other viewers joined us. We can take a look at the scoreboard. Currently, match is in favor for Jan Nepomniachtchi, leading for 1. 3-2, but 1 lead point. 4 draws in a row, and now we have another exciting game in Rosalimo. So game 2, game 4, and now game 6 with exact same variation. We can take a look already from beginning what happened. So Hans chooses Rosalimo. Nep respond with e6. There's also other lines such as g6, which is one of the most popular one. I'm playing most of them. Currently now, I'm the fan of g6, but now when I see the NEPO is playing e6 this way and quite confidently getting very good positions against none other than Hans Niemann, I actually enjoy this, and maybe I'm gonna bring that to my repertoire. After takes, it's always better to take with a b pawn here, because if you take with a d pawn, that doesn't really make sense that you close up your bishop. And in these positions, there is this move e5 that pretty much shuts down the black's activity of this bishop on c8. So that's why b takes. In the previous games, Hans were playing the move d3. Now he chooses to go for the move b3. Queen c7 on the board, bishop to b2, f6 restricts that bishop, queen to 2, and Hans chooses to go for a very aggressive line where he is castling on the long side and NEPO is castling on the other side. King b1, prophylaxis to just have the saver king for the rest of the game. d3, quite logical move, and then after d5, Hans goes for rook from d to g1, looking to strike on the king side. And the next sequence, everything until this point was completely right on the side of Hans Niemann, and obviously for the NEPO. Here he started playing some suspicious move from strategical aspect of this game, because why he is suddenly spending time on the queen side? He has to play on the king side. He needs to start pushing these pawns. He doesn't have so much time to wait. It's obviously that when you have opposite side castles like this, especially in these lines, you need to provide quick activity and counterplay. So I'm not Grandmaster, but we can clearly see. Oh, my bad, guys. Oh my god, let's go again. My bad, guys, my bad. Okay, punishment is to go over again. So I'm explaining here that g6 is something I used to play a lot. Yeah, I just realized, my bad. g6 is something, okay, I understood. So g6 is something that is very popular. Everyone is playing this move, but now when we see that NEPO is playing this e6, we can notice how he confidently plays these lines and how he already put Hans under enormous pressure, strategical pressure, because he completely forgot that knight is heading toward the d4 square, which is clearly good outpost. And after e6 here, he's planning to bring the knight on e7 and defend that knight. That's why Hans Niemann is reacting quickly and taking this. I explained also while the scoreboard was on the screen that d takes c6 is not good because it immediately shuts down this bishop on c8. So that's why in all these lines is the best to capture with a b pawn. After b3, something that Hans did not play in this match. He used to play d3 move in the second game and in the fourth game. And now in the sixth game, he's choosing this line that is after d3, the most ambitious. And I played that myself many times. Queen c7, bishop to b2. It's typical reaction trying to get something on this long diagonal. And after move f6, it's typical reaction because NEPO wants to shut down the activity of this bishop. And then simply to bring this knight to f7, where actually this knight becomes strong piece. Queen e2 on purpose to prepare longside castles, which was quite interesting idea by Niemann, looking for the sharp game, of course. And after bishop to e7 and king b1, we got quite pleasant position and playable position on both sides, especially when NEPO suddenly decided to strike the center with d5 move and looking for Niemann to capture so he can correct the pawn structure. Rook from d to g1 was very correct, and at this point, of course, NEPO is not waiting for anything and inviting some attack on the queen side, because when you have opposite side castles, you're always looking for quick attack, so you want to be faster than your opponent, but on the other side, you want to be conscious and careful how you push your pawns, because obviously when you push the pawn, you can't go back. This is the only piece in the game that cannot go back. The first round of chess. After knight f4, Hans chooses to spend some time on the queen side so he can stop a little bit the attack of NEPO, which is convenient, of course. He doesn't want to rush, but then in the next move, he pretty much shows impatient and he plays quickly the move c4. So he plays knight f4 to be patient, But after next move of c4, he shows impatience. So this is what he missed. And it's clearly he's spending 15 minutes here already. 98, 96, 94 is unavoidable knight maneuver that NEPO will use in this game and give him very nice route to the white's king on b1. I had a game recently in one very nice tournament in UK, Isle of Wight, where my opponent did pretty much the same thing. He pushed c4 and he completely forgot the knight maneuver. My knight went from h6 the same way to f7 to g5 because there was no knight on f3, and then he went on e6 and then on d4. But this is pretty much the same path for NEPO, and he's definitely confident. We also saw from his reaction that he clearly liked his position and was very, very suspicious about Hans' decision. And now, since Hans didn't reply with another confident move after 98 that NEPO played, he wanted to see if Hans is preparing something. Maybe he prepped this before the game or something, but it's obviously strategical blunder and inaccuracy. Okay, I see that other people joined the stream, but I promise, guys, I'll bring the main screen back. Don't worry. There is a lead for the NEPO. Scoreboard is 3 for NEPO, 2 for Hans Niemann. This is the game 6. Earlier today it was a draw, and I believe that Hans will have great chances, but he has to be a little bit more patient, you know, guys. So let's see now what happens in this game again. So basically, rook b8 is something that Niemann will try to... NEPO, sorry guys. NEPO will try to exploit later because obviously Hans blocked it with knight f4. Yeah, the board is here. I was joking a little bit. Bad joke. All right, so yeah, Hans burns a lot of time. Yeah, we can technically adjust the score. Yeah, you're right, guys. 1 second. NEPO clearly spending his good time out of playing area, walking around, quite confident with a position on the board. Let's bring that scoreboard on the main screen. So whoever asks again, what is the score? Then I don't know, guys. Hope you're not gonna troll me after that. I'm doing my best to... Okay. We're gonna update it soon. And Hans played the move g3. Whoa. Let me try to understand this move because I'm surprised. I didn't get it at all still. I could understand g4 Was this the problem in the on the board? Did the board record it not good? Okay, now we added the numbers. It's actually G3. It's actually G3. What's the point of G3, guys? I just don't understand the point of G3. He scares of knight f4, but okay, I would be more scared of knight d4, not knight f4. And when you play g3, you are suddenly affected on this side. Will he prepare to push f4? Maybe that's also his idea. Now he wants maybe something like knight h4 followed by f4. But I believe after something like knight e6, then NEPO is just much faster with his ideas. Like, doesn't matter what you play, NEPO pre-moves knight e4 and that's it. Like, what is funny actually here, the third recommended line from the computer is the move g4 here. That's actually how much this g3 could be human waste of time, let's say. But let's see Hans. Let's see what he sees idea. If he has something solid in mind, then I would say that this is good. Maybe actually he wants knight h4 and then to put the knight on f5. Despite knight e4 happens, but still, you don't really want to take this guy here because this is clearly losing the game in long run. Like, these bishops are simply becoming so powerful on these diagonals. So g3, dc4 happens first, which makes a lot of sense. And Hans will, of course, respond with d takes e4 without any doubts. He takes back, and NEPO autopilots the move knight to a6. And here, he's ready to plant the knight on d4, obviously. So let's see how Hans will react on this. NEPO 54 minutes, while Hans on the other side has 38. Knight e2 f4 is very passive idea. That's not working. That's so passive. I could understand to bring the knight on h4 and f5, but he's not in time for that. So I think he's clearly just waiting and inviting him to go here. So he might take on d4 and after c takes to bring the knight to d3. So let's say queen e3, knight e4. But no, now doesn't make sense to take because you just simply put the queen on that spot. Maybe now he wants... So okay, maybe he wants to play g4 once the knight comes on d4. And temporarily he is playing the move g3 just to stop any problems with knight f4. So maybe that's his idea. Staying solid and not panicking. Obviously he made strategical mistake, inaccuracy. Maybe not mistake, but inaccuracy. Maybe it's too harsh to say that this was mistake. But inaccuracy for sure. And then after takes, and knight e6. Queen to e3 maybe was the idea, and after knight e4 now to go for g4, because obviously if you come back with a knight here, okay, suddenly we can play quicker with something like h4, and then just rushing, and already engine suddenly prefers, despite having these holes, these bishops are too passive. Even if you plant the knight on f4, I'll just go g5, and my bishop is working properly. So once you plant the knight, that's it. Can anyone tell me the score? Are you trolling me? Bring back the old GM, his commentary was fun. He's, I don't know where he is, but if you don't know who is that old GM, he was third in the world after the Kasparov and Karpov in 1983. I would like actually to have the Mr. Grandmaster Ljubomir Ljubojevic here, but unfortunately he's very, how I can say, out of media person. He doesn't like to show up too much in media, but when he shows, it's gold. What is the score? No, this guy's playing with me, I guess. Do you believe? What do you think about the position? I just spent a lot of time analyzing it. Actually, Hans played a move queen to e3, which we recommended. So I think Hans thought wisely here what to do, and after all, I like his decision. After missing the outpost square on d4, he found some resource to fight back. He's inviting knight e4, which might happen anyways, and then he might start pushing the g4. So this is potentially probable to happen in the game, but if not, he might use the other idea of going knight h4, which technically I don't like completely, because I don't know if he wants to sacrifice the pawn again or something, trying to do something with this knight on f5, but I believe that he understands this. This technique of playing g3 and g4. I don't know the name about that technique, but I remembered when I was looking in some other game or analyzing some other game in the past. It's familiar to me, but I'm not super familiar. I'm not seeing it frequent because it's not human. It's not human to play in a meta game, especially in the opening, one move with the same pawn and then the other one is to just push that pawn back, because you're trying to make your opponent decide. So this is literally like decoy for knight e4, and then only now g4. Did you watch the Champions League final? No, unfortunately. I was very, very tired. I couldn't watch. So knight e4 happened on the board. Let's put it here. There's no problem with knight e4. It's just invitation. So now Hans should go for g4 definitely. He should understand that he cannot wait. What has been your best scoring response versus Rosalimo? If you mean by, oh, Hans went very quickly g4. Yeah, boy. I like it. Yeah, Hans understood the assignment. I mean, it's pretty much clear. He has to do something. He can't wait. Yeah, about the Rosalimo, in the past I was struggling a lot. Then after exploring many different lines, many different ideas, gave me some confidence. Eleyah, what would be your score in an 8-game match versus NEPO? I would say that I could maybe draw or maybe make 1 point in total, only if NEPO comes unprepared in the game. If he doesn't exploit my openings, if he doesn't exploit my weaknesses and so on. If he just directly come to the game, I have very good chances in the first match. In the first couple of games, I have good chances to do something. But it's also questionable even that. That's my honest opinion. Otherwise, if he prepares like against Hans, he would crush me every single game. No doubts. Can somebody tell me the score? You have it on the screen. You have it in the bottom. Eleyah, are you Team Hans or Team Nepo? Okay, if you're asking who I'm rooting for here, okay, I have to say for Hans, right? But I'm rooting for exciting games. I don't want Hans convincingly crush Nepo or opposite. We want exciting games. And Nepo plays the move bishop e6. Why suddenly evil bar went in favor? Niemann, let's try to figure out what's the point. Why he didn't like the position of the bishop on e6. It's such a natural square, especially after putting the bishop there. I think there is no any big human difference, but might be the move order in engine difference. So computer recommends rook b8, rook b4 maneuver, which was obvious for improving that rook. But putting the bishop on e7, he's clearly not recommending for some reason that I'm not capable to understand yet. And Hans plays bishop to a3. And Endgame AI review says that this is a mistake. Why he moved the bishop? Why he's wasting the time? Why he's clearly wasting the time on the queen side? I believe that this is not good approach of Niemann. I strictly believe that he has to do something on this side of the board, like trying to push these pawns, or I don't know. It's not simple. It's not simple game because this knight on d4 is a very strong piece, and it's always uncomfortable playing against this knight. Okay, bishop a3 is mistake according to a computer machine or something, but you can clearly see that Nepo now plays queen a7. So he's doing the opposite. He's defending that pawn and being passive. He shouldn't do that because this is the Nimzo pawn. Guys, this is the Nimzo pawn. You don't defend this pawn. You can't take this pawn. This is game over. After a4, this is game over. I'm talking like I know chess better than them, but this is this quite known? Like Nimzo pawn, like this structure pawn, like opens king's head. You don't really want to defend that pawn. Maybe he was scared of this, but like bishop c5, knight c5, and you might have something here. Like at least maybe we can bring the other rook to the game. Engine clearly prefers here black for some reason. Like he's trying to, I guess, undermine this knight and push a4 anyways. But it's of course not simple during the game, because what you're trying to do is to, I would say, let's say, you want to stay solid. You don't want to panic with your attack. That's what Nepo is trying. So queen a7 is not really like a mistake, but it's just miss of an beautiful attack on the queen side that he could do it directly with rook from a to b8, and he clearly can't take this pawn. It's very, very risky. And I actually have the position that I played in that tournament that I mentioned earlier in UK. Very similar position. I don't want to bring out the game now, but it's a very similar position. And people, maybe some people watched it because I was also live streaming that game. Also, one of Grandmasters in Serbia was commenting that game, and it was very nice. Very similar motifs on the black side, and Hans played h3, which is a fine move because he wants to finally move this rook, maybe to c1 to protect this pawn here, but on the other side, Hans is not the one that could attack in this game, unfortunately. He's purely waiting for some mistakes from NEPO if he can play on this little stuff, little tactics in defense. If NEPO goes too quick in a direct attack. But okay, I believe position is very playable. No, this position is not possible to understand what computer thinks here. Like computer just thinks different. You can't think like a computer. Like NEPO maybe was 100% sure that Queen A7 was a good move because he doesn't want to give the pawn, and anyways it's still supporting the attack. You know, like we can ask NEPO. He most probably understands. If he thinks deeper, then he can maybe just give this pawn away. He didn't screw up. Like, you cannot easily screw this up, but you can if you open up directly or if you start sacrificing directly. What is the stake of the match? I think it's question about $100,000. I think if NEPO wins the match, then NEPO is getting like half of that, and half of that goes to charity, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I heard on social media. And if opposite, I don't know what's happening if opposite. But there is a lot of money on stake, yeah, on board. So guys, if you want to improve your game, if you want to start participating in online tournaments, don't forget to make the ENDGAME account. It's quite nice, quite fast platform. I already tried it myself, made an account, and already enjoying their features. So don't forget to do it. The link is in description. Yeah, we forgot to mention about the time control, but we can clearly see that it's 60 minutes plus 30 seconds, but there is no time control after the 40th move. It means they will not get additional time when they get 40th move on the board. Are you part of Serbia national team? Of course not. I'm too far away from Serbia national team. Mr. Eleyah, do you have a channel yourself? Of course I have. I didn't want to promote myself here, but I can say my name. Of course. People in chat could tell you. Some of them might know. So NEPO starts thinking behind what he can and how he can improve the position, because obviously he's the one that deserves attention here. We all don't know who you are before this. Of course. Because I'm not famous. Hans and NEPO are just another level of popularity on the internet, especially in chess world. Maybe currently one of the most popular chess people, especially Hans. You did a video about Hans openings? Yeah, I I did like a lot of his openings in the past. I was watching his title Tuesday games. That's how I decided to make some videos about it. Recently not, because I like more dynamics, and Hans became a bit more solid player. What happened in the previous game? In the previous game, we got a quick draw. 30 minutes draw, like literally. It was very chill in the morning, especially because on the other side, I have more time to rest. And on the other side, I was happy that they drew quick, but I was not happy because of you. You didn't get the entertainment. And finally, NEPO played the rook from a to b8. NEPO is definitely looking forward to start thinking about some sacrifices, and now let's say one of the biggest blunders on beginner level would be here. Okay, I see some problems on the B line. Let's move the king on the side, and then kaboom. Handshake. That would be a very bad thing, right? So that's why Hans played quickly rook c1, defending on c4. And he suddenly looks forward to bring the knight to f5 square. Do you now guys see the reason why behind queen a7 doesn't exist anymore? Queen was simply better on c7 than now on a7. You don't really queen there, because in many scenarios, coordination between knight a3 and bishop on a3 is very bad. Why? Once the knight comes on c5, he can't move really back because bishop is always hanging on a3. And in opposite, if bishop decides suddenly to capture, then he'll lose simply one piece in defensive side, and the bishop on e7 is simply out of the game. It means if you trade your bad bishop for this bishop here, which is clearly the defender over the king on b1 and this general queenside structure, for the very bad bishop on e7, that's actually what NEPO wants. And he did not understood that earlier, played queen a7 very quickly, thinking that he has to protect that pawn, but he could just ignore it and just immediately play the move rook from a to b8. Because as I mentioned, bishop takes, let's say knight takes, and something like queen d6, will result definitely in problems, because now bishop takes e6 is a threat. It means after the trade like this, queen e6 or knight e6 both works. Maybe it's better to take back with a knight, because you want to keep your queen here and already be ready to push a4. The pawns really doesn't matter here anymore. We can notice the very bad coordination of the knight on f3. Absolutely restricted, no in time to get to the f5 square, because NEPO is ready to break through with a4, and that's actually why computer already likes a lot NEPO in this situation. Queen a7 was more in style to be solid, without risks, without sacrifices yet, just keeping everything under control, but this results in some consolidation from the Niemann. h3, protecting the pawn, and after rook a b8, rook to c1. Because if we can notice earlier, on rook from a to b8, you can't really play the move rook to c1, because bishop takes g4. And that's actually the reason why queen to a7 was inaccurate, because after rook from a to b8, h3 was not on board, and here Hans has time to play the move h3, rook a b8, and finally rook c1. That's the difference. NEPO played rook from f to d8. He's simply improving the pieces. He's bringing the other game to the goal. Knight h4, knight f5 is technically still the plan for Hans, and I think he might be in time for that. Because he's clearly keeping everything under control. Now he's also will be in time maybe in the future to play this move. If he really needs it, but since the rook is on c1, he protects everything. And Hans again starts spending some time. Nepo clearly, again, confident with his position. What is surprising that engine prefers here Hans' position. This is guy's engines, like, it's completely unpredictable. But if I'm black in this position, I would think the same. I would think that black must be more comfortable, like, most probably minus 0.5 or 4. But it's actually opposite. It's 0.4 for white, for Niemann, because suddenly everything is under control. Suddenly there is no tactics. There is no entrance. It's so sad that chess has so little fans. If they were musicians, they would get millions from the match. I can sort of agree. Any sport, any more exciting sport, would get more people to watch, of course, because the more sport is simple, the more attraction it will get. The more sport is confusing and requires thinking and requires, you know, locked in actually, to lock in. That's it. No spectators too much. Like, just watch something else, like football. It's pretty much the obvious. It's not so much hard to follow the ball and look if it's in the enemy's goal or the other side. And you just follow the scoreboard. Here you follow the moves. You have to follow everything. Some people, actually, I can tell you that recently I played some tournament in Slovenia. And I was staying in my friend's house, and they are not chess players. They understand the game. They know how pieces are moving, but they never watch chess. And technically, whenever you ask anybody or they ask you what you're doing, I'm telling them I'm playing chess, that I'm, like, let's say, more than 2600, 2700 elo on chess.com. Or in person, I'm playing tournaments, I'm competing. They were like, oh, wow, I never heard about that. And then on the other side, for me, is very, like, unnatural to hear that someone don't know chess at all. Because I think myself it's quite simple to know it, but other people simply don't know it. They don't know the game. And I introduce the chess to them, and they suddenly start watching. They don't know what's happening on the board, but for them it was exciting. So people need to think. Even bar helps them if you explain how the even bar follows can actually make the entertainment a lot, because some people here in the chat, I believe they're just looking at a even bar and saying, oh, it's now winning for white, oh, it's now winning for black. So that's how some people are following. People who are better in chess, like, let's say grandmasters, are not even watching this stream, or maybe they're just watching but they're not interacting. They're just looking at a board and that's it. They don't need my comments. They already understand the position on the board. That's actually how the top level chess works. Show the board. Board is showed. Shown. Rook from h to d1. Interesting choice by Hans. Our engine recommended here to go for knight h4. That's what we covered. And in this position, maybe bishop f8, prophylaxis against knight f5. G6, I'm afraid that they can even play it because it's creating some weaknesses. Maybe now something like knight to G3. And then something like F4, maybe rook F1, F4 could come. That's provocation. So I don't believe that NEPO will play something like that. This is actually another reason why after the move queen to F7, we can see that we are simply leaving this pawn that way. Because if now knight takes C5, let's say here, then NEPO has many winning moves here. There's many winning moves. One is A4. The other one is bishop takes C4. The other one is just takes, and after takes, queen A7. And we can simply notice that taking on C5 is trap. It's pinned. Knight doesn't have good square to go back and protect this bishop or to interact with some other pieces. You can potentially go here, but I don't need to take you with my knight. I can take your bishop. You can take my rook, but I got two minor pieces for the rook. And this is always better, obviously. So I believe that Hans has to go knight h4, and like he needs to improve this knight, because this knight here on f3 is a little bit restricted, and he's out of the game, so he needs to find some spot. Earlier, some people were recommending knight to d2 as improvement, but this is not really improvement. This is passive idea, because you're pretty much doing the same thing as you're here. You're restricted. You're maybe defending c4 and freeing up your rook for movement, but on the other side, it doesn't matter. It's better actually to plant the knight on f5. It's such a nice outpost here. If you can't get it on e6, then at least on f5. And that's actually what is the purpose of going h3, protecting the pawn, moving the rook to c1, defending the c4 pawn, and then going for the knight h4, knight f5. Some people ask, why not knight e1, knight e3? That's a good question. Let's try to figure out. I'm trying to figure out before I look into the engine, because it's always better to analyze yourself, and then later you can confirm it if engine works. So, okay, what happened in the game? Rook fd8, and now you mentioned knight to e1. Knight to e1. Okay, let's see. I like the idea, but I believe it doesn't work because of some tactical purpose. So let's say they burn the time with something like this, and if you play something like knight e3, they might be knight takes b3. Exactly, this is the problem, guys. So it looks good, but you're simply losing the game now, so this sacrifice exists. You have to be conscious about the sacrifice on b3, and engine approves that, so that's good. In the game happened rook hd1, bishop f8, we have prophylaxis, and now it recommends knight e1. So maybe this is the idea of Hans Niemann. Firstly, to protect the knight, and then oh, suddenly engine didn't like this. But knight e3, knight takes doesn't work anymore for NEPO because rook is protecting knight, so it makes sense. That's maybe why he played it. But wait, knight e1, bishop c4, rook c4, knight b5. Oh wow, just sacrificing the piece and pretend that you have the initiative. That's so machine. That's like computer. Firstly, on this position here, this is a little bit deep, because in this position here, after bishop f8, computer suggests it's plus 0.3 knight e1. Once I play the move knight e1, machine says it's -1. So it's clearly something which is so deep behind this, because there is no proof point why this is here now completely winning for black. I would say that if rook takes d8, knight takes a3 intermezzo, king a1, rook takes d8, and rook c1, this position is -1 for black. But to be honest with you, c line gets open, maybe white can get some counterplay here, no? And c5 pawn, bad bishop on f8. But I think this move here clearly shows the advantage, because it's like creating this beautiful fortress with these pawns and this rook together. So it doesn't matter that he has bad bishop on f8. This bishop is sometimes helping here in this moment. So that's my opinion. So it's a very crazy game. This guy is going to be a very crazy game and very exciting. And I really like that we are getting this on the board. Alright guys, I'm gonna take a couple of minutes break and I'll see you soon. I'll put the live screen on the board with them only, and I'll see you soon. Guys, I'm back. Thanks for your patience. All right, what I missed? Oh, seems to be a lot of stuff. So Nepo played bishop f7, that's what I saw once I left. 91 by Neiman. 96 back. We got a rook trade. He planted the knight on d2. Rook d4, f3, and h5. Alright, completely different than from what I expected. This plan of 91 was happening after rook fd1, that was obvious. But I like more the plan of knight f5, knight h4, knight f5. And okay, now this is also quite nice because we can notice that knight on a4, knight on d3, bishop on a3 now makes a lot of sense in pressuring the c5 pawn. So for the endgame, of course, this can get to be crucial. And I believe that Nepo will even sacrifice the exchange on d4 if, let's say, Hans decides to attack this guy. For example, let's say king c2, trying to whack hit a square for the bishop on b2. And let's say Nepo plays something with, I don't know, let's say queen b8. And now bishop to b2. I believe that keeping this rook on d4 could be also possible, because the dark squares become soft. But on the other side, sacrificing the exchange is always quite big risk. So I don't know if Hans will do that, but maybe he'll bring the rook back and then try to maneuver like this and then put some pressure here and looking some ideas on the B line to definitely exploit it, but Hans keeps everything under control. This is actually what matters a lot. And he actually played king to b1. After h5, he plays king to b1. Not king to c2. Because he didn't want king c2, maybe because of some problems of 94, which is very natural. Nepo plays h4. Wow. So quickly. This I did not expect. This is something I did not expect. Why he locked? Why Nepo? He could just keep the pawn on h5. He doesn't need to rush. Maybe he wants knight g5. Maybe that's his idea. He wants to play on this pawn, but okay, what if I just... What if I skip the move? Let's say king c2. Were you going to play knight g5 here? I think you can, because your pawn on c5 is hanging. I don't see the purpose. I think this is just deciding, like, this is too much declaring the structure, technically. Turn off your music, Eleyah. What music? When check marks appears on the square, yeah, I technically think that this means that this is correct idea. Like it's fine move. It's not mistake. Mr. Commentator, please tell Nepo this is not a blitz. But I believe that Nepo is not playing quickly. He also played after... What happened on the board? Bishop b2, rook to d8. Okay, this was obvious. He has to move the rook away. But it's hard to propose any good plan for white also at this point, you know? Since this is a very close position, and white cannot get the d5 square like black can get with 94, and black has permanent problem on c5, That's why earlier NEPO had a chance to immediately put a pressure on the B line and not allow Niemann to consolidate with rook c1, because the pawn on g4 was angry, which we saw in that line. What's the score? It's 3 for NEPO and 2 for HANS. And if you ask me that again, we're gonna be in trouble. I'm joking. So g5. He gave up the f5 square. f5 square. Why? But technically okay, it's not a big deal. They're playing quick, yeah, the time control requires it, no? This is the time control experiment, time control, exhibition. So at some point they'll play even faster. Hi bro, I've seen you in Spain, you played good chess. Oh, thanks. That was a nice tournament. Let's go chat, let's see who has more fans. 1 for HANS, 2 for NEPO. Let's see in chat. Generally in the close positions, you have plenty of time of regrouping your pieces. And he plays rook to c2. I don't know necessarily why he did that for a second. I need to think about it, why this was the idea. He wants knight c1, but that doesn't make any sense. Maybe he wants rook... No. Why he wants rook c2? Is he looking to bring the king on g2 h2? That doesn't make any sense either. Just crazy idea. Maybe he wants rook d2, but okay. Yeah, maybe he wants rook d2 just to be protected. An engine consistently goes up for HANS. It's currently 0.7. But there is no clear deal breakers here. That definitely ruins it. He's trying to setting something up. He's trying to set something up, but he's definitely in a favor zone. Strategically, he is now in better position. I hope he doesn't mess up here. Rook to d2. Rook to d2 was on the radar, for sure. Eleyah, can you greet Serbian fans? Of course. All the best to you guys. Yeah, engine likes white here because of very bad pawn structure on the queen side for NEPO, but NEPO is stabilizing and keeping everything under control. We can see that NEPO wants another draw here. He is repeating the moves. Bishop e7, bishop f8. But I hope HANS will not accept that. Like, he understands also that it's quite hard to improve this position. But on the other side, we could make something possible here, maybe. I don't know what's the main idea, to be honest. We have to spend some time thinking here. It's not easy. Because engine will always move around in this position. So, okay, there is some crazy idea that I saw from the machine, but this is very unhuman. So what computer wants, eventually, is to play the move rook to h2. Let's say NEPO is just burning the moves. Then to play the move queen to e2. Let's say he burns the move again. Then to play queen to f1 to escape 94 jumps. Only then to play bishop to d2. And then to reroute bishop on e3. So why rook h2? Just in case if any knight f4 happens, is in protection over that square. And being out of the radar of the knight in any scenario. And reroute a bishop to start pressuring this pawn. And anytime the knight jumps on d4, like this, It's not a smart idea to take it, of course. But still, how to improve the position? Knight from d2, b2. No, this is actually... This position might end up in a draw if HANS doesn't want to get... this type of positions you cannot really analyze with Engine. Because Engine doesn't understand these positions. This is the trick. Like, there is no calculation, there is no concrete lines. Especially the Stockfish. Maybe Lila Chess 0 could find some ideas here, but Stockfish is pretty much showing that white has to stay around and he doesn't provide any good idea. Like, humans could find good grandmasters and strong players familiar with these structures could find some ideas. So if there's any grandmaster in the chat, please tell us some idea here if you have for white, because obviously NEPO is the one that looks for a draw here. He shows already that he's repeating the moves, and HANS played the move bishop to b2. Is it the way engines are built? Which way? Engines doesn't understand close positions really, they understand only open tactical positions very well. Engines are built on databases, I believe so, and probabilities. So if Engine is unfamiliar with some close position, he will always think about something concrete that he's trying to find. If he can't find something concretely, then he will always pick around and play with pieces in place just to burn the moves, and wait for opponent's mistake. You can't really prepare f4, my friend. f4 will just lose your pawn. And HANS reroute a bishop on a3, and NEPO respond quite confidently with a move rook to d4, closing the line. So because he was threatening opponent c5, rook to d4 was not really forcing move, because I'm still explaining you that this is not a threat. Like, taking on c5 is not a threat. Anytime you take this, you might lose the game. Specifically, now you can get in a very big trouble, because you have permanent problems with the pins. This is the one pin, this is the second pin, and sometimes this pawn here doesn't even need to be on the black side, because clearly opens up the endgame for these two pieces, and also it's much easier for black now to play with that pawn sacrifice. That's why NEPO should not be worried about this idea of taking on c5. We already saw that earlier, that queen on a7 could also stand on c7. I don't know why HANS chooses to close up that quickly. Maybe somewhere here after the move h5, he could try something else. But also it's a question what to try. Yeah, very close positions. And if HANS doesn't want to risk here, we might get another draw. He plays king to c2. But he maybe got some idea. Maybe he got some... He wants to improve. NEPO goes quickly. What did he play? I didn't see. He plays king h7. Oh, okay. Finally, he moved the king. But I believe that if HANS offers a draw on NEPO, he will accept it immediately. He will not even think about it, because he leads the tournament. And then would be only 2 games for the rest of the match. Who will decide and who takes the money home? I would love to see the king walk to h2 followed by preparing a3 and b4. King walk is definitely possible, but we have to be conscious about that, how we are doing it. And a3, b4 will be quite risky, because this opens many lines and many options for black. We have to be careful also that to remember that this knight on e6 can always come to d4 square, where the rook stays currently. Do not forget that this position could get quite tactical once we change the coordinates of our pieces. What's the score? Good question. Very good question. More than 1,000 people on YouTube. More than 500 people on Twitch. On X, I'm not familiar with the amount of viewers, but quite a lot. That means that you're very interested in this match. What is accuracy of this game so far? According to Machine, it's 93.2 for HANS and 93.3 for NEPO. Opening segment 91.6 for HANS, 90.6 for NEPO. Middle game is pretty much the same, around 93. There were no brilliance, no excellent moves, no great moves, all very good, okay moves, book moves. One inaccuracy from NEPO, and that inaccuracy was Queen to A7, where he had a chance earlier, as we mentioned, that he doesn't even need that move to protect the pawn. He can already strike on the B line and threaten the pawn on C4, where we explained that if he would do that, Rook to C1 would be a blunder because it drops the pawn on G4. Once Bishop A3 happens and he defends that pawn with Queen A7, now HANS is in time to defend the G4 pawn. So when they do Rook from A to B8, Rook to C1, and pawn on G4 is not hanging. King G8 played. Is this any sort of potential repetition? Not yet. So HANS played Rook D1, then King G8, and they're playing literally pace. They're not moving much around. What about the whole match accuracy so far? I don't know that information. I want to say that this is my 4th cup of coffee for today. And it's only 4 p.m. I think that information was not necessary, but next to this boring position, we could discuss something else. It's not boring, but if something gets open, then it can become interesting. But pretty much they're just moving around, trying to find the best angle for some idea if it exists here, but I clearly don't see anything, and maybe we're gonna get something. Now the D-line gets open. Hopefully NEPO will not trade this knight. Otherwise, this could be different position. Eleyah, are you living in Serbia? Yep. Do you drink coffee during the game when you're playing over the board game? No, I'm reading every single chat. But most of the YouTube chat is coming here, so don't worry, guys. I'm also reading the Twitch chat, don't worry. It's just there is more comments on YouTube and more interesting comments on YouTube and on Twitch also, but time to time. I'm not looking concretely what chat I'm reading because everything is in one chat here. Please do more commentary like this in the future. I would like to, especially if HANS want to invite me for other streams on that he'll play. I will be grateful to cover that. Can HANS win this? I'm not sure, because what I'm seeing currently on the board is pretty much just burning the moves around, nothing special. Not even seeing the idea what and how white can improve this. Clearly knights are better in the close positions, but there is no certain outposts and squares that white knights can get. When do you get the Grandmaster title? Grandmaster title is not on my possibility radar, I would say. International Master title might be, but Grandmaster is too far away. Eleyah, I want to apologize. I insulted your commentary earlier, but I see you're a cool guy, even though you can explain a bit better. Yeah, thank you. No worries, I'm not harsh on you. Some people likes you, some people don't, that's reality. If everyone likes you, then that's questionable how you're a person. And then it's impossible to be likable from everyone. How old are you? I'm 24. That was like, wait, am I 25 or 24? Yeah. In 2 months, I'm reaching 25. I want to challenge HANS in push-ups because I saw this viral video that he competed against Aronian. So I'm going to ask him if he want to compete with me in push-ups. That would be a great comment. What do you think about that? Hans Niemann and Eleyah in the gym. What do you think about that? Or street workout. Or swimming. That's also cool. Why do you look 34? I don't know. Chess? I think Fabi was there too. He did more push-ups than them too. Yeah, Fabi is very athletic. Fabi is, maybe he doesn't look like, but he's very athletic. He looks like 34, okay. Eleyah, why do you never speak Serbian? I speak Serbian, but not in streams or YouTube. It's my mother language. The video quality is very good today. Yeah, we worked on that and it's finally improved. What is White's ideas for progress here? Pretty much, I don't know, guys. I'm fully transparent with you here. I don't really know how White can make a progress here. Maybe Hans has something on mind since NEPO starts finally spending some time on clock. Because obviously you cannot really wait all the time. Maybe some side will lose nerves and then we're gonna get something concrete on the board. Dubov's Kalitani skills are crazy. Yeah. I'm very close to do the muscle up, so if I manage one day, maybe in half a year from now, I'm gonna ask Dubov for that challenge if he wants. Maybe he'll want. If at some point we gonna be in the same tournament. Bishop e8. So finally we see some let's grab bishop movement. We haven't seen that in a while because bishop was fully focused on c4. Okay, NEPO decided also to make improvement. He plays the knight on f4. And he offers the rook exchange. Okay, we got something on the board, guys. We got something on the board. We technically have some improvements. Obviously on d4, we can take the rook, but it's quite risky. Because after c takes d4 and c5 in the future, this bishop will definitely hit this guy on a4. So we have to be careful about this. It's not completely easy. It's not completely easy here to handle now this position. Like you have to move the queen somewhere. Then the bishop comes to b4, then c5, then bishop gets activated. And if you don't move the knight, I take your knight. This knight is legend here, so that's why NEPO is sacrificing the rook. He's looking for compensation, and I like what I see because they're not gonna agree on a draw like earlier today. So this is the current position. And Hans played bishop to c3, so he's putting the pressure on a5. Do you play 960? I like to play, but I didn't play in a while. Is rook sack sound? No. We just explained that it will just change the whole spirit of the position. It will give black full clarity and attack on the queen side. Opens up these dark squares, that's why Hans is avoiding it. Or maybe at some point he might take it, but firstly he needs to do something. And you can notice now that the idea is queen to e1. So he want to take this pawn on a5, and if bishop d8, then he's protecting that pawn. But then he's losing the track over the c5. So that's actually the angle they want to cover. Why is NEPO so disrespectful? He kept leaving. I mean, his choice. You see now Hans leaving, so full right of. You can even. There is the rule that you can even leave on your move, on your own move. In chess, you don't need to. In the past, it was the rule that if you leave on your move, then that's like the attention call. And if you leave now on your own move, of course, on this event, they will escort you if you want to go somewhere. But according to the FIDE rules, I think you can leave even on your own move. But it's not natural. Okay, now we have knight to g2. So NEPO is provoking the repetition. Like queen e2, not f4. That's what NEPO wants. But here the question is that actually Hans can play queen f1. This is the idea. Let's say bishop f7. What is wrong with the position? Does he want knight e3? And this can really get cooked very soon, because if he maintained the trading and then taking the exchange, then it makes later sense to take this rook. If he makes all these trades of the pieces, then it makes sense to take the rook after all. But certainly here we have knight g2. And now Hans has to play queen e2 is quite natural to happen. And he plays it. Another 4 back. Queen f1. Of course, Hans doesn't want to make a draw. He's quite confident. He wants to play for a win. He wants to play next move 93. He wants to trade that good knight on f4 for bad knight on f2, obviously. This is finally coming to the game. And then he will consider then taking on d4, which will definitely mark imbalanced game. So at some point, I think that, let's say Nepo needs to go back. We're going to make some trade like this. And maybe Hans will get the queen on d1 and try to exploit this area. Also, it's very hard for Nepo to move the queen because this bishop is always hanging. And whenever you go something like bishop to c7, it could get tough here for Nepo because its queen is isolated here and the d line is clearly open. But what we see on the board here, bishop 96. He moved it back, and now taking again is not a good idea. So let's see how Hans reacts to that. Maybe he didn't calculate that move. What opening result in this? This was Rosalimo Sicilian, specifically third move e6. You cannot leave on your own move without the arbiter's permission. That's the rule in the past, like maybe 10 years ago. Nowadays, I think they removed that rule. But maybe they bring it back, I don't know. Why are the people in playing hole turned to the wall instead of the board? Because on that wall is a big TV. Thank you guys for adjusting the camera. No problem. You're welcome. Can you get both players in post-game analysis? Hopefully. I think that if one side wins, then the other side will not come. This is not a World Championship match, of course, that they have to come to the press and to the conference like this. This is not a conference room, but we're going to try to make it as much as possible. On the other side, the winning side will join for sure, because always when you win, you're happy unless you have the other game afternoon. So in this case, there is no game after this. So I would say that if one side wins, then potentially they will come. The other one, or maybe both, I don't know, let's see. What are you drinking, Eleyah? Coffee. Cheers. What is your online chess rating? Since I recently opened Endgame account, I don't have any. It's provisional rating, so I did not kept playing too much yet. So if you mean on the other platforms, on Lichess, I don't play much. As Hans tells, the Chess Mafia platform, I have 2700. When I become FM 2 years ago. What's your workout routine? I'm currently doing only pull-ups, push-ups, and dips. And weighted. Everything weighted. Kamsky will not report, yeah. Is the next goal live? Are you working on that? I mean, I'm not working on that, but I'll try to make it happen. You know, sometimes luck is enough. Did I? I did not ban you. Maybe by accident. Oh, finally. Oh my god. We got a rucksack. Finally accepted. Okay. This is different. This is different. We are getting intense. Because NEPO has to decide how to recapture d4. Obviously, there is many ways. Knight takes d4 is eventually biggest inaccuracy here. E takes d4 would be smallest one, and C takes d4 is the best. Obviously, C takes is the best because it's opening this bishop angle and creating the opportunities on the queen side. So also refining the pawn structure, giving this nice spot on the c5 for the other pieces, potentially opening up this light square bishop. So logically, C takes is the best. And intuitively, hopefully NEPO will do that. But NEPO take with a knight, guys. NEPO took with a knight. The biggest inaccuracy. Finally, Hans got +1 advantage. This is the first time. This is the first time in this match that Hans got convincing advantage. And clear advantage that he cannot really ruin here. Knight takes d4 looks as the most curious option. But a problem with this move is that the bishops are still closed. This was the crucial mistake. Let's say crucial inaccuracy that gives Hans biggest advantage in this match. He played king b2. He walks away from geometrical patterns from this knight on d4, I would say. Technically, knight can take on f3, but this opens up the f line, also opens up the d line. NEPO took. Hans 30 minutes. NEPO 26. Now I can give more chances to Hans. Like, percentage of win now are definitely around 65%. While NEPO holds. NEPO could not win. Only if Hans blunders. Let's say NEPO's chance to win this is 5%. Because of the bishop pair that are very bad. And drawing is, I would say, 25. I mean the rest of it. Do the math. Okay, finally got the advantage. But this is not like tactical advantage. This is not like the moment where Hans will figure out some tactics. It's pure grinding and fighting against these close positions. So these knights will help him to adjust like properly. At some point he'll want to trade this knight. Obviously NEPO will bring this knight back, but Hans understands that this position is definitely in his favor. And taking pawn on f3 sometimes is a question, is it actually the upside for NEPO or downside? It's only upside because there is the option of going bishop g6 and taking on e4. On the other side, it's a downside. No, what I just said. So on the other side, it's a downside because it opens the f line, and upside is because this pawn is now not protected by this pawn. So this is clearly what we've seen in this position. Yeah, we are getting improvement little by little. Yeah, this is actually the reason, finally, where we can tell that knights are dominating the bishop here. Sooner or later, if Hans managed to adjust his coordination of the knight on a4, because you cannot really look at this pawn as always, maybe. Now when I think twice, I again don't see the way how Hans will make the major improvements, but definitely engine likes white's position. Maybe he just likes because of simple material advantage, but that doesn't mean necessarily that white could make the breakthrough, which is sometimes people get excited by getting the exchange in such positions, but you can't really break through. How are you going to break through? I'm not still seeing the pattern how white breaks through here. By trading one knight for the other knight, Yeah, but you again open up this guy. Yeah, and we are getting slow in a time scramble. NEPO leaving the board again, taking his drink. 27 minutes on clock. Well, Hans has 10 minutes, and Hans has to be careful, otherwise he might enter the major problems in the time scramble segment. And Hans sacrifices the piece. The knight. Inaccuracy. But technically speaking, if he takes on c5, then that's what Hans wants. Queen takes f6. And that's the purpose why Hans left the pawn on f3. Of course, this could be dangerous because there is no knight on f4. And rook might shift on f1. And this bishop is not helping the attack at all, like the dark square bishop could help here. So if this reaches on the board, then Hans definitely has more chances. Finally, we got some concrete actions. So after knight d takes c5, NEPO doesn't need to react on that. He can ignore it. Obviously, and I think he will. He will not accept this sacrifice. Hans just took the pawn. Sometimes this question, is this actually a favor or not a favor? Because he grabbed that pawn, but for what cost? He opens the bishop diagonal. But when he comes back on d3, he might push c5, which will technically close the queen and bishop at the same time. He'll open something else, but the structure is changing, guys. That's what we are noticing. And the dynamic of the game is changing. It's getting more and more intense, which we like. It's not mistake. It's this sign means inaccuracy. Like white is not losing the advantage. The advantage just dropped because technically engine could defend everything, like even that +1 position. But here it's dropped because maybe he certainly didn't like the way how this bishop gets open, because what engine prefers mostly in open positions are bishops. So more you open the position, bishop pair will prevail. That's why he dropped the advantage for Hans. But practically speaking, pawn is a pawn. As long as the white's king on b2 stays safe, then pawn is a pawn. Okay, what we have on the board? Bishop g6. That's what I'm telling you guys. What happened? Did NEPO offer a draw? Someone in the chat says he declined the offer. Queen f2. King h7. Engine now goes in 0-0, so this position is crazy. Maybe something like 96. Then c5, then takes on c5 back again. I actually assume that this might come. Look at this. Knight e6, c5. Then back sacrifice. And if takes, takes. And if takes, now takes on f6. And in this position, if NEPO doesn't find a4, Hans is again +1. If he plays something else, like bishop takes e4, let's say, trying to activate the bishop, then Hans get the advantage back with queen f7, king h6, queen f6 back, and taking on g5. Bishop g6 is, for example, losing immediately because of queen h8, bishop h7, and rook f1. There is no way how to stop rook f6 now. Knight is not on f4 square. So he needs to play here the move king to h7. I'm not sure if this is safe to take because there is some dangerous move a4. But in these structures, you know, sometimes these two pieces are more dangerous than these guys here, but it depends also how position gets open. Of course, Hans can always provide checks and starts collecting more pawns, but just this position gets more and more complicated, which is something we want, guys, something we were looking for. So on the board we have king to h7, and now Hans with 8 minutes on clock, he's calculating most probably the line of knight e6, c5, sacrificing back, takes, queen f6, and then what happens in this position. That's what Hans is looking for. I have to tell these guys the air condition in this area is like in north area. I couldn't handle it anymore. It's so cold here. Have to tell them to, but how to tell them? That's a good question. Cannot leave you guys. Yeah, good question. Who are you guys supporting? Are you supporting Neiman or NEPO? Actually cool how many people are in the audience watching. Yeah, there's actually many people. All tickets are sold from Hans side, from our federation side. All money from the tickets goes to charity, it's good to say. And I'm very close to their playing call, so that's why we're gonna try to bring them later. Eleyah Topuria right here. Yeah, nobody inside this area. Hans knows long time, yeah, correct. C5, we might see the sacrifice, guys. We might see another sacrifice, guys. Or knight takes d4. There's an option to take on d4. And we also can see non-sacrifice on c5. It's getting very exciting. I don't believe you know Serbian. You want to challenge me? Why do you think that I don't know Serbian? Bishop a3? What is bishop a3 think? And Hans took on d4. He didn't want to sacrifice on c5. He still tries to plays out this position, trying to shut down these bishops with keeping the pawn structure alive. Because that actually makes sense. Keeping these bishops and the amount of pawns on the board makes a lot of sense, I would say. You only have wire falling for trolls. It's logical. Come on, Hans. Many supporters for Hans. Yeah, I don't know why bishop a3 is hanging, like there is no bishop on the board. I'm confused about that. NEPO has to decide how to recapture d4, obviously. More than 1,400 people on YouTube, that's such an amazing number. Hit that like button, guys. Why the position is equal? Because it's closed and white cannot make the progress and shows why he has better rook. But, you know, little by little, maybe Hans can make a progress and create some options for the rook to get inside. That's actually for sure. Some random people enter the studio. Queen c2. Okay. He wants to start pushing this guy. This definitely makes some sense. But with a 6 minutes on clock, he definitely needs to be wise, because once he drops this guy here, that can get problematic. I think rook e1, queen b7, rook e1 might come on the board. Protecting. Yeah, queen b7. Attacking e4. I believe Hans will respond quite quickly with a move rook to e1. Yeah, he defends the pawn. He understands the assignment. So queen b7, rook e1 happen. Of course, black can get chances if the e4 pawn falls, but Hans will not give this pawn away. And the only two pieces that can eventually attack that pawn is bishop and queen. So there is no other threats. Like this knight will clearly support the next push. But NEPO has ideas, maybe something like bishop e8 and c5 is not possible to play. So, oh, bishop e8 is a very strong move actually, guys. Because now you can't push, you're gonna lose your knight and you have to move your king somewhere. King e1 is apparently very big blunder. King c1 is much better move and the only move in the position for Niemann. Now bishop a3 is one idea, as you mentioned, guys. So, okay, rook e1 was played. But okay, bishop a3. Yeah, bishop e8 played. But if bishop a3, king can just go somewhere, like king b1 or king a1. So I don't need to accept that, obviously. And bishop e8 is so strong move. Now Hans has to understand that this is not so easy position. And NEPO is playing so quick. NEPO is blitzing out everything. No shame losing on NEPO anyways. One of the best players of this generation. I agree with that, yeah. So for this, Hans did this for himself and for experience and for for his project about Endgame AI. King C1 only move apparently. Only one move. King C1, now bishop A3. Check, is uncomfortable check. He can go on D1, I would say. He can also play knight to B2 if he wants, but yeah, this bishop could get tricky. Suddenly Engine prefers a little black side, but I don't know if this is enough deep evaluation of Engines. So King C1 played, Hans understood that he can't really go with King on A1 because the further promise on the B line, and if he decides now to take on A4, then Hans will be more than happy about that because he'll certainly get the challenge with the queens on the B line, and eventually he will put the king on D3 and then rook to B1 and so on. And he plays quickly because he knows that he doesn't have so much time to waste. The moves are not hard to find, but more he gets lower in time, it becomes more hectic. Yeah, Nepo didn't like the move King C1. We can clearly see on his face. A little bit wider look. Look at that picture. Till now it's crispy. It's not crispy anymore because we fix it. Can't complain, guys, though. The scores are shown on the screen. I believe the position is very, very sharp because this bishop suddenly gets active, but Nepo understands that. Nepo really understands that if he trades one of the bishops, it becomes very good for Hans, so he needs to keep the pressure. Trading the bishop pair here for one of the knight, or let's say if Nepo trade the light square bishop for the rook, then this knight could become suddenly good because all pawns on dark squares are bad together with the dark square bishop, obviously. That's the rule you need to know, guys. Because these pawns can't really make a progress from these dark squares. That's why Nepo wants to keep the light square bishop for any cost in the game, even if it's a matter of giving one for the knight. The dark square bishop, obviously. Bishop to b4. He's attacking the rook on e1. Peak moments of the game. He plays King c1, rook e2. Okay, white's not shown on the board. Okay. My mistake. Yeah, here. Okay. King g7 played. He wants to protect that pawn on f6 that was hanging after the bishop was moved to b4. Who do you think now has more chances for win? I believe position is still closed. Hans really wanna exchange and open up a little bit because he has a rook for a bishop. But as long as Nepo keeps the tension and keeps the bishop on the board, that won't be possible. So technically it's still quiet, but it can explode in any second. Knight b2. Heading with his knight to d3, I guess. Nepo quickly played bishop c6. He's stopping knight to d3 because there's bishop takes e4. Nepo understands that it's very crucial to make Hans in a time pressure because there's the only way how he can make him to make mistake here and try to compensate these two bishop pairs for that exchange sacrifice that he get earlier. Queen to d3. Instead of blocking with knight, fair enough to do it with queen because he wants to skip the tactics of d3 if that might arise, but technically this is not the thing that will happen. Nepo is leading with 3 points. Hans has 2 points. That's the result of the match. Bishop to c3. And evil bar goes a little up. So let's see why that's the case here. It tells that queen to f3 followed by d of rook f2. It really changes the spirit of the position. Is that something Nepo missed? Because suddenly now bishop can't come easily back. If queen to f3, bishop to b4, knight to d3 followed by rook to f2 in the future will be highly unpleasant because some sacrifices might appear here. And this is what Hans played. Hans got little advantage back from the evil bar. This is nothing much, guys. Don't get too excited. We already seen positions with +1 here, but more we go deep in this position, more it gets deciding because more pieces we trade, there is not so much options than yet. Share the stream to your friends, share the stream to everyone to jump in and watch these exciting moments from directly Belgrade, Serbia. Bishop to b4. He understands that he needs to bring this bishop back as soon as possible. Knight to d3 technically is the move here. Is Nepo Serbian? No, he's from Russia. Serbia has a really strong basketball culture, I believe. That's correct. King to d1. Wise move by Hans. escaping the problems in pins and dark square problems. So he really understands that it's crucial for him to move away with his king, then play knight e3, then go rook to f2. Like, Hans is playing really strong. Hans is playing engine moves, guys, now. Nepo gets down under 20 minutes. We are seeing in the second half of the match a really good chess by Niemann and quite risky chess by Nepo. Bishop to a3, forcing Hans to come to d3 square, because Nepo really wants to push that a4 pawn. That's what he has in mind. And Hans plays quickly knight to d3. Arbiter is bringing more score sheets. a4, Nepo is doing actually the best plan. He has to create a break, otherwise Hans will smoke Nepo with a rook f2, threats on f6, and knight takes, sacrifices on e5. That's why Nepo has to react quickly, otherwise he might get into trouble. And pretty much the only move now for Hans to keep these little advantages to go for the move rook f2. And if they capture, then bye-bye. Queen f6 is entering, so after rook to f2, bishop to e7 is natural reaction. And then here, in this position, there is only one move for Niemann. This is unbelievable. This is why there is only one move. Because the pawn on e4 is hanging, the pawn on b3 is hanging, so such a move like knight c1 is pretty much what Hans want to avoid playing. So knight c5 is the only move here. Bishop can't really take, because checkmate is coming after queen takes f6, and Hans will be winning. On the other side, queen can just move on b4, let's say, and then knight e6, king h6, king h8, king f7 is blunder because there is knight takes g5, so that's not possible. Let's say king h8, still knight g5 is an idea. Oof, this position is getting crazy, guys. We're seeing peak moments in the game. a4 played, Hans thinking, 3 minutes on clock. Let's go, guys. In the chat, put 1 for Hans, 2 for Nepo. Let's see who has more fans. This is your heroes today. Is there any increment now? No. If you made an increment after 40th move, not at increment, that's called time control, but they have increment after each second. It means when they play the move, they get 30 seconds, so that's enough. I can see a lot of my friends in the audience. if your guy is in the Belgrade or around the Belgrade, around the Serbia, you can come tomorrow and join to visit the final day of the match Hans Niemann Javne Pomoći. And Hans played a move knight f2. He went in. Is it that a move? Wait 1 second. a4, knight f2. So Hans played a very passive move now. Why Hans? Please, after a takes b3, don't take queen takes b3, because Hans, you'll miss bishop a4. Oh no, Hans. Hans, please. Don't play this move. Hans thinks maybe that after knight f2 you have queen takes b3, but there is fantastic sacrifice of the bishop, because if you take this bishop, then queen b1, king d2, queen c1, king d3, and queen c3 is a checkmate for Nepo. Please, Hans, don't blunder this. Yeah, knight move was very passive. With 2 minutes on clock, it's definitely showing that it's under pressure, and it's not the best move eventually. Bishop to b4. Nepo decides to bring the bishop back. He wants bishop c3 and then to take on b3 and then go after this pawn. It's getting crazy, guys, because there's a very sad way for Hans to defend that pawn, but literally undeveloping his rook like this, and this could become very intense. So it's okay, bishop b4 happened and Hans played rook to c2. So actually the idea is after bishop to c3 to sacrifice the rook. That's the idea. Bishop c3, rook takes c3, pawn takes c3, and now something like king c2. So he wants to sacrifice back because he feels confident about these pawns that can become queens in the future. So rook c2 makes a lot of sense here. And then the follow-up could be something like knight e3 in the future. You think bishop to a3, rook to e2 back, but in this position Hans doesn't need to play rook e2 back. He can play queen to d3. And now if bishop b4, he pretty much wasted the time. Okay, we have rook c2 on the board. Nepo starts spending some time. Hans is under 2 minutes, which is not good for him. Nepo definitely looks forward to recomplicate a position, and he looks to move the queen somewhere. Maybe queen will come somewhere on the A line. Nepo plays queen to a8. Very interesting move, keeping the tension on the e4 and also looking to bring some ideas once these lines get open. Queen to d3. Eventually, Hans has to bring the queen closely. Maybe vacating the square for the king to come to f3, and then he can focus somehow to break to the queen side. This might be one idea for Hans Niemann. Current score you have in the bottom of their names. So 2 for Hans, 3 for Nepo. After this game, there's 2 more games and 1 day left. Is there increment? There is. 30 seconds after each move. He will not flag, of course. This is not game without increment. It's like mini World Chess Championship. I agree on that. There is actually many people watching it and being interested in this match. We can put some close view of their playing it, since it's getting more intense. We want to see clearly what's happening in real time from the Belgrade, Serbia. I'm gonna give you guys a couple of minutes without me. I'll see you soon. I'm back, guys. What happened on the board? So queen d3 was played. They exchanged. Queen a1, rook c1, queen a3, rook b1, bishop c3. Very natural move. For some reason, engine didn't like it. Queen c2 and now queen a7 back. What was the threat? Queen a7. Maybe it's a good idea to just run away with a king somewhere and then suddenly start pushing these guys here, no? This looks interesting, I believe so. I'm doing very well, thanks for asking. Yeah, Hans is following the idea. Yeah, technically speaking, the only harm thing that might happen is from this bishop here. Like, this bishop is just coordinating that Hans cannot get what he wanted, and that's definitely the A line. Like, that's why this bishop stands here. And Hans definitely has more chances in this game now suddenly. But what Hans needs to do is to play faster, accurately faster, plus making the Nepo think a lot and making him burn the time. If Nepo suddenly starts burning a lot of time in this position and get the same amount of time that Hans has on the clock, around 3, 4, 5 minutes, let's say, or 6, 7, then Hans might get something out of this position, I would say. He will get some press. Queen a1. Sorry, queen a5. As I mentioned earlier, 2 for Hans, 3 for Nepo. Eleyah, do you know Agad Mater? I don't know him personally, but he is like the legend of online chess and YouTube chess. He's actually the one that is one of the first creators in online chess history, let's say like that. His channel is like old, more than average people age in the chat, I would say so. So technically, he has many fans, even though it's a very underground channel. He has a lot of fans and provides very good content, so shout out to him. And he's from Croatia. Mato Jelic I also remember. Not watching his content too much, but I know for him. What chess content you consume? The only chess content I consume is when Peter Svidler commentates on St. Louis Club. Specifically, the St. Louis Cup is my favorite part of the year. And any stream that Svidler covers is goated stream. Also like Peter Liko streams, so that's actually a very strong commentator. Board is not wrong, guys. Board is updated, no? Are you sure? Because here I can only see the Queen A5 last move. Wait. No, that's definitely a technical issue with a board itself. It's not me, guys. Can you tell me what was the move last? Hans played something? What is the move now on the board after Queen A5? Tell me the move. Tell me the move. I don't know what's the... Just tell me the move. King F1? King F1, Queen A8? Wait, just don't write wrong moves, please. Only right moves, guys. Definitely DGT is wrong. It's not on my side, anything. Oh my god, I cannot resolve this. Wait, I need to stop. Queen A8. King F1, Queen A8, and he went back. Wait. And wait, it's Rook D1, Queen A5, Rook B1, Queen A3. Yeah, this is the board, right? Exactly. Yeah, board was not working for some reason. Hopefully they will update it soon. If someone is watching from the Serbian Fair Play team, please update the board. King G1. Okay. Queen A5 by NEPO. NEPO is just going up and down, up and down. Alright. Board is working again, seems. Is it? Yeah, Hans is cooking. Let him cook. Hans moves the king somewhere here, I guess. Maybe not here, because enters some promise of check. Just being on G1 is enough, I think, because it's... Oops, not that move. Oh, what happened? King F1, Queen A3. Repetition. Is this repetition? And NEPO, of course, wants a draw here. But there is an idea of 91 here, guys. Which forces bishop b4. And Hans has... We don't see, unfortunately, the clock here. That's the main issue. b4! Hans played b4. Changing the pawn structure. Okay, now we have to make the moves again because I'm dumb. I refresh the screens. So something like this happened, as I remember. And Hans pushed b4, right? Hans pushed b4. The only move for NEPO is bishop to a4. The only move. Anything else goes in +1. Yeah, I also can't see the clock. That's a problem. But it's definitely getting intense because NEPO is trying to play on Hans' clock. Bishop a4 only move. Bishop takes b4. Most probably the queen might be problematic then. Or some knight d3. Hans is definitely around 1 minute. That's crucial. Bishop b4. There is queen b3 and then queen trade happens. This is actually what Hans prefers. And it's a big trouble for NEPO in this position because King Wilmar should to d3, maybe knight will get regrouped and these two bishops cannot hold the open area. That's the problem. So after b4, the only move is bishop to a4 for NEPO. And also NEPO is definitely getting low on time. And how to respond on bishop a4 with a move queen to e2. And still bishop takes b4 is questionable because there is always queen to b2. So Hans is deciding a lot of stuff now. Hans doesn't want to draw. Hans wants to reach NEPO in this. Did they update the board? Bishop to a4. Okay, NEPO found a move. Hans quickly goes queen to e2. And now another only move for NEPO. Bishop to b3, guys. Bishop takes b4. There is queen to b2. And they updated the board, right? Okay, board is updated. Classy. We can come back to the main screen. Queen to e2, bishop to b3. Okay, NEPO is finding all these good moves. So now there is an option for Hans to go b5 or c5. Both moves works. Also king g2 works. Wait. Hans sacrificed. Hans sacrificed the rook. And pushed b5. He clearly entered this position. He couldn't get enough anymore with these bishops. These bishops were clearly irritate him. And he's around 2 minutes, which is good. So nerves, guys. This is the nerve games. NEPO made Hans to sacrifice that rook on b3. And now Hans is trying, with his good knight, to control this square. Of course, NEPO will never promote this guy here, and the Hans king is very safe. But on the other side, queen on b3 and bishop on c2, bishop on c3 are clearly controlling these two pawns, and Hans needs a lot of progress if you want to promote these guys. NEPO plays bishop to b4. Hans quickly responds with queen to d3. Hans really want to trade off the queens. For beginners, just want to tell you that this will be fantastic blunder that Hans wants to see on the board. This endgame is completely winning, so NEPO is not looking for a simplification here, obviously. So trading queens will only favor Hans Niemann here. Nepo has to keep his pieces here strictly behind the pawns. Otherwise, if queen suddenly gets up in front the pawns, then this will be in favor of Hans Niemann. And he plays queen to b2. Position is super interesting. If you once again ask me about a score, no, that was a bad joke. Okay, so $91. Okay, he clearly wants to push the queen from b2 square, but on the other side, the king on f1 is, you know, what's your favorite anime? I don't watch it. What's your favorite children's cartoon? That's a good question. I love a lot of them. There is one, it's called, I think, okay, I know pronunciation in Serbian, but on English, I don't really know because I didn't watch it recently. I don't know the spellings. I think it's Code Lyoko, something like that. And Tom and Jerry, of course, the base. Oh my god. Hans played knight f2 back and suddenly Nepo has a little advantage. What happened? Why this happened? Queen a2, knight f2. Why he goes back? He had to play the move b6 if he wants equality. With knight f2, Nepo can play bishop to c5. And why is this giving the advantage? Because maybe in the future, if the queen moves, there is always some d3. Oh yeah, there is always some d3 problems. So now Nepo has to find this move bishop c5. But okay, what if I just play something else? Like what if I just wait with queen b2 again? What's the main problem? Does Hans needs to repeat? Nepo could be the one pushing here, guys, suddenly. Who is your favorite chess player? I don't have it. Queen b2. Is this repetition? If Hans plays 91, clearly he might goes for silent offer of repetition. Hans is also minute and 30 seconds. Maybe he doesn't want to risk anymore. He risked too much. And he goes knight to d1. Guys, let's put it on the main screen. There is already one repetition. Will Nepo goes for queen to a2. Hans go knight f2. Is this straightforward repetition? And Nepo now clearly see that Hans is satisfied with a draw here. Taking a sip of water, looking at the Hans, and trying to see, can he do anything more here? Of course he can think a bit more because he has 10 minutes. On the other side, Niemann is on 223. But Nepo is the one that can press here. If he understands that keeping the bishop on c5 could make a lot of problems to him in the future, but of course Hans will not move the queen to d3. Pretty much the position is stuck in that. Hans look at a window, understands that he's safe there, but what if we just Nepo kept pressing here and using these dark squares? It depends also how Nepo wants to push this position. And he plays bishop c5. Nepo wants to win this match. Nepo wants to win here. He doesn't want to repeat the moves. And Hans plays queen to e2. No draw, guys. No fast draw. This is no game of draw. Clearly, Nepo shows that he will not repeat one more time. He plays queen to b3, touching this pawn on h3. Also gives an option to come inside. So if king suddenly gets there, there is some ideas of beautiful forks. He plays queen to d3, blocking the action. And of course, we already see that taking on d3 will be a fatal mistake for Nepo. And this is something that he can do. This is lesson more for beginners. You don't want to trade queens here because the only piece that does something properly in Nepo's camp is definitely queen. And Hans is confidently defending. Second rank, third rank. He's being there. Nepo goes for queen to b2. Invites again queen to e2 or knight to d1. Fantastic game if you ask me. Will Nepo press more? The other side has to be careful because simplification only leads in Hans' favor. Queen to e2. Challenges the queen. Of course, Nepo is not a fan of trading here. What if you try something like queen to c1? Clearly, queen to e1 will result in some queen takes c4. So this is actually the point that king has to go in g2. And now maybe Nepo can play something like queen to c3. Depends also how Nepo want to risk here because he want to stay safe. He also understands that risking here will not bring him anything much. So he wants to keep possible chances but without major risks. This is the live position on the board, guys. Nepo goes queen to b1 check. Challenging Hans to go queen to e1. Why the board is not updated? Nepo gave the check on b1, no? Yeah, queen to b1 happened. Check. Queen e1 possible now. If queen c1, then we had this opportunity. So queen c1 would push the king on g2 eventually. Any move is safe now for Hans. Hans plays the move queen to d1. And guys, the only move for Nepo to stay this slightly more comfortable according to the even bar is queen to a2. Because he has to put a pressure on c4 pawn. And now Hans will play queen to e2 back, offering... And it's a draw. It's a draw. Finally. Handshake. I'll do my best, guys, to make them here in the studio. Keep being here. Don't go anywhere. Yeah, okay, great. Just click once. You can use this one then.
Okay, maybe this is better. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for hosting. So like the morning game was a bit like disappointing because I mean I was a little bit naive going into the same line for the second day in a row. So Hans did some homework and like did quite nicely. So yeah. So in the evening we had like yet another debate in Rosalima system. I guess like very curious position.
Already third game in a row.
Yeah, third in a row, but okay, this is quite interesting structure. So this one resembles me of Zaimish Nimzo with colors reversed. So this is like very, very unclear, very, very fighting. I think I briefly analyzed this before the tournament. I mean, it's like rook dg1, h4, g4, all sort of moves work for white. Like e5, knight e4. I mean, about knight e4. I think somehow like knight e4 allows me to play e5, coming into knight d8, knight e6, and this could only be better for me, I guess. But knight e4, I mean, humanly understandable. Maybe like he was already out of the book because the position is quite fresh, I guess.
What would you play on g4 instead of
on g4? I think it's quite forcing, like something like d4, knight e4. I think bishop e6 here is the move. And like this is one option, and also I can try e5 first. Maybe e5 is also an option here. Because he's not in time to play c4, so whenever he goes bishop e3, I play c4 always, and I'm better. So that's why if he goes something like h4, there is always c4 play, yeah, dc, then c5, bishop b7. This is like very, very interesting position. Like basically it's anyone's game. So let's say if white tries to be smart and prevent bishop e6, then we can play this one, bishop e6, knight c4, bishop b5. I think I had something like this in my lines, but I'm not sure. So clearly I didn't prepare b3 for the game, but I mean, overall, I felt like there is very complex positional, like, and strategical battle, yeah? So c4, I guess after knight d8 is a bit unpleasant. I expected him to play knight h4, but maybe g3 is also the move. And here I misjudged it completely. So somehow I missed his move g4. Because, I mean, if not g4, I would be, like, enjoying the position a lot, like f5 is coming. So obviously, like, knight e6 was the move here, and, like, I'm not sure if he has to take, but if he takes many times, 94. I thought like maybe this one is surely better for me, but I wasn't sure like how much. So let's say rook c1, queen d8, f4, and here like I stopped my calculation. I considered this position like a bit unclear. I mean, maybe it actually is, but I mean like two bishops, and his bishop here is passive, and I mean all in all, whenever I capture the pawn on d5, I would be like borderline, okay, not maybe winning, but pressing a lot. So I actually rushed with this move because after g3 I didn't expect him to play g4 move after, but actually it's like very strong move g4. And I guess after g4, yeah, so without a 5 idea, white is completely fine. And maybe it's now white who is choosing either to play or not, because I mean obviously I cannot be worse with knight on d4. I can even like consider like sacrificing an exchange in like dozens of different ways, dozens of different ways. Yeah, so probably something like rook b8, and then okay, you know, rook b8. Let's say bishop e3, bishop e6 was more smart. You know, provoking his king, because after knight d2, he cannot really untangle his pieces. But here I think I played a couple of inaccurate moves. So let's say bishop e6. I mean, the problem, yeah, here, rook b8, I wasn't sure. Okay, rook b8 was calling for itself. But then somehow I wasn't sure what happens if he takes on c5, but probably it's just like a bad move. So I just misjudged it again. And here,
because
like
in that case, g4 is hanging, h3 is not played.
Yeah, like
he can play rook c1.
Yeah, after h3, correct. And like queen e7 is like a bad one, just a bad one. I mean, I felt like it's wrong, but somehow like I thought that maybe it's just a fortress, and like I was sort of aiming to an English position. But of course, rook b8, and then I mean, if I want, I can play like queen e7, but basically c5 is never hanging because he exchanges my piece for like opening up his king. And yeah, that was poor, I guess, from me. But still, I think the position is very, very solid. So rook d1, bishop f8, bishop f7. I'm not sure about king b2, but maybe he was afraid of some tricks. Knight e1, yeah, basically just went directly here. So I felt like this is like fortress.
I think about instead of knight e1 idea, knight h4, knight f5. I think he has some.
Knight h1, knight f5, probably.
Some much earlier.
Which moment?
More. Instead of rook c1, I think. No, rook c1,
okay.
Bishop f7.
Rook f8, here, yeah, of course, was a move. But I mean, overall, like, positional idea from white is to take c5 fry, so like 4 times, I'm not sure. And I mean, it's also like hanging around, like bishop f7. I don't really think he can make a lot of progress, so whenever he opens files, it also backfires to him. And it's understandable that he brought all, like, let's say, all his pieces to the queen side and then played knight e3, so this was something I expected him to do. I mean, I'm not sure what's happening next, because, yeah, I mean, sadly, it's white who is, like, white who decides if he wants to play here or not, really. So, I believe this is just fortress, but, I mean, the worst case I can also, I'm not sure, like, the worst case can be, like, rook d4 here, for example, yeah. I'm sure d4 cd, I think, can barely make any progress. So, it's like if he opens up, like, with a3 b4 is surely, also, whenever, like, the knight on e6 is alive, there is only one square for 2 knights.
Yeah.
For white. I mean, white can try to play this, of course, like, endlessly, so that's why I didn't want this to happen, like, too early. So, rook d4, I mean, kept doing nothing. Kept doing, like, more nothing. Repeated moves, so, yeah. So here knight e6. So he decided, like, to go into this position, like, capturing finally on d4. He could also play, like, king c1, king d1, and then all, like, prepare bishop d4. Yeah, I wasn't sure, so I felt like knight d4 is maybe more interesting for me, because cd, like, you're standing still, knight d4 gives you some direct counterplay. So he's likely to have this, I mean, what I'm going to say is I don't trust him, actually. It says like 0-8, but okay, I'm not buying this. So knight c5 is a principle in a way, but also he also activates maybe bishop g6, queen f2, king g7, knight c6, c5. So this,
now.
yeah, this was the position I saw, let's say, from distance. Yeah, taking on c5, I think it would lead to a forcing draw. Like, sorry, he has to take with another knight, of course. Yeah, bishop 5. Also, I'm quite important to find that I don't have bishop here, because king 3, I would win otherwise, but here I think he plays. Yeah, the problem he played b6. I mean, bc is also another b6, as was the move, obviously. So that's why I play c5. But I believe this would end in draw, like, quite quickly. So let's say he takes, take. I believe so he has some time to capture. I guess f4 should be drawish. So I mean, actually expose his king also, and like,
He needs to go for repetition or something.
yeah, at some point. I'm not sure. Like, Sachin is a repetition for white, like not anymore. Like queen g5, ab3. Oh, sorry, f3, of course. Yeah, f3, king c1, and let's say okay, knight e2. I mean, it's particularly, I would even consider this is a bit unpleasant for white. Yeah, let's say. So anything can happen. So that's why he went to some positional approach. He took on d4, cd. CD was also interesting. I wasn't sure, like, what do I do, but I felt like CD is, like, very simple for me. Like, I put my bishop on b4, all my pieces selected. I mean, if we would like to make a draw, probably taking 4 here. I'm not sure, but he made a rook c1 works, yeah, and c5, c6 trick. So what I did, I thought it was really sensible. Oh, wow. Jeez. Well, this is painful, bishop b3. I felt like there is something. I'm not sure what happens after knight b2, but after king d5, f5 would surely give me a lot of style points. A lot of style points. Yeah, I mean, I was looking for some breakthroughs, but I mean, at this point, I sort of like give up on breaking through, decided just to stand still. Because Geneva divorce, yeah, here the moment is going out. There's a bunch of pieces around. I'm not sure, like, probably I gave him some progress, but I don't think it's real progress. Like, anyways, just like fortress. He was sort of optimistic in rook f2, I believe. Bishop b7, knight c5. I saw this, but it was like very dangerous for him as well. Like, because there is like basically no way back from this, 4 knight c6. I was considered queen c8, but queen c9 c6, king 6, let's say. Okay, knight c7 is a completely random line. So nothing is there. So instead he played
for defending, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not completely defending, but at some point I felt like I had a moment to play d3 and to have a breakthrough. So I mean, this is fairly cool because with knight on d2 he can barely make progress. And like his optimal setup with knight on d3 also fails because something is always hanging. He cannot protect on e4 with the king because always bishop for check will come. And here king 2, okay, just keep sitting here. Good for me that he decided to play on. A little bit before, yeah, bishop before probably, I'm not sure about the variation, probably gives like some nice chance to white wing. Probably should be a draw with some percent defense, but I didn't want to check. So that's bishop before, bishop b3. b5 or c5 would be like very messy, but I believe he also was not like a big fan of his position. Because also my king is quite close, so I can, in a way I can also run with my king. So good for him, he can always go for a fortress even like basically 2 pawns down in endgame when it's knight against bishop. So here I felt like this should be something for me, but I mean, like I had like 10 minutes. I wasn't sure like if there is something forcing. So yeah, we repeated once, bishop c5, and from now on I had this different trick every time. I'm not sure, maybe I should have tried like queen c1 check at some point, like king g2. He has to go here, so sadly d3 doesn't work, queen d3, let's say bishop d2. I haven't got queen d7, yeah, so I have to play bishop d4, but then he probably goes to d1. So this doesn't work. Probably queen c1 check was the move, maybe. King g2, queen c3. That's why I initially wanted to do. Let's queen d3, queen d2, and let's say if he goes king f1, I mean, because I don't have a move here, otherwise I play king f8 and then king e7. I wasn't sure like, how good is this, actually, like knight 1, queen e2, let's say knight f2, king e7. So I wasn't sure if I'm really catching any progress because whenever I go with my king further, he goes queen f3. And with queen f3, then okay, I have d3 at some point. So maybe it was like a bit of a mischance. So I consider myself king d7, then obviously go queen f3. So even this is a fortress for me. But to compete fortress things, it is not. Queen e4, let's see knight d1. So yeah, probably I should have enlisted like, because I can play this basically for ages. And also while my king is close, I can come with and speculate on the move like queen c3. So this is set. I sort of gave up on this position too early, but yeah, I wasn't sure if it's like that much after all. And also, I think it was a moment, I guess here. Okay, I basically didn't have d3, yeah. Because I wanted to play like something like queen e5, king e2 d3 check at some point, but probably not here, yeah, so it didn't work. Because the idea was like, let's say d3, queen e3, queen e2 check, taking queen d4, and this looked like really ugly to me because like it's sort of like spins and bound. Yeah, somehow it falls out by rook f1, and then like queen b2. I mean, it's not really it's like h1, yeah. Probably still some sort of fortress, yeah. Probably it was like visual thinking, yeah. Yeah, it's a complex game. I mean, I enjoyed it quite a bit, but yeah, I mean, of course, I didn't. I didn't go for more because basically taking zero risk here, you know, I was like falling asleep at some point and then losing on time.
Somebody just said earlier that if you repeat another in the last game again this time, that's fun.
I don't know. We will find out soon.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for joining and good luck in the next day.
Thank you.
I shut down the mic. Would become really popular in the next months to be played on many different levels. This was the match, the game 6, HANS NEPO in Belgrade, Serbia, and Hyatt Residency. Thanks for watching, being here. Don't forget to join 10 in the morning tomorrow Central Europe time. And that's it. See you.